Well, let me just check which mic this. Mm, mm. Okay then. All right. Let me see. Camera. Um. Hello. Well, okay then. So, what's good? Yo, what's good? MMA district. All right. So, I have no idea which MMA district this is for you. How does the mic sound? Is it all right? Is it not all right? I mean, like, I'm trying to figure out. Sounds good. Oh, chill it. Okay, so we good. All right, so here we go. What I'm doing now is basically the reason why I've been away for the last kind of 2 weeks is because I've not really enjoyed too much my previous review format. So after speaking with my boys in the Hero Association, the One Punch podcast, what I've decided is due to looks like it's Matt, go check out his channel. His recommendation was to try out kind of like a different format, try and see how I'd feel with different format of review. So what I've decided is I might just start when I read a chapter, I'll just live react to the chapter that I'm going to read, and then kind of note down any points as I'm reading it and review it to your guys' faces, because then it requires less editing by me, and you guys can just see exactly what I do and see exactly how I feel about a chapter. So I think this way might work better. It's quicker, it's more efficient, and it should be more enjoyable for everyone. Oh, okay. So yeah, that's why. Okay, yeah. So this is Don Tom. Okay, so the MMA district is Don Tom, someone who actually, when I first joined YouTube, he kind of helped me along, introduced me to a whole bunch of stuff, and it was actually really good in terms of like pulling me into collaborations and stuff like that. So MMA district, go definitely check out him. I know him as Don Tom, but yeah, he's an OG over here. All right, so let's go through the chapter and discuss exactly what we want to discuss. So this isn't really a live reaction because I actually just did a collaboration with both Zonin and Kishin. So you guys should definitely go check that out. I won't mention some parts of what came up in that review in that kind of collaboration, just because I feel like it would be better heard in that collaboration. But let's go through this anyway. So this is chapter 942 of One Piece, called The Daimyo of Hakumai, Shimotsuki Yasui. Now, just a quick kind of history lesson here in terms of Japanese hierarchy. You had, in the old days, you had the emperor, who would elect kind of like a military equivalent, which would be the shogun, and then the shogun would have little kind of prefectural leaders, which were known as the daimyo. So that's what this Yasui, Shimotsuki Yasui, that's the equivalent of what he was. He was quite powerful. He was a daimyo, and he was really only answerable to the shogun and by extension the emperor. So let's go through this. So Hakumai is the only legal harbor in all of Wano. There may be good people visiting, but that means bad people will also be visiting. So this is Yasui back in the day speaking about Hakumai and where he is. So he says we must be an impregnable force. His men are all riled up. They're like, yeah, as expected from the Wano country's strongest samurai. And here we have, as I told you, I've already read this chapter before. So we have Lord Odin. So this is him in his younger form. You see, he's got like kind of the old samurai Japanese kind of straw hat on, like the one from Amigasa Village, and he's got longish hair as well. So this is where Yasui is kind of speaking to him, and he's like, "Now's not the time for you to be impressed by like the strength of the samurai in Wano. You may be a ruffian, but you're the shogun's son." And we see Odin being like really, really pissy about being kicked out of the castle. He's laughing about it, and like there's a musical note after his comments and stuff like that. But he is kind of hurt about the fact that he's been kicked out of his own household essentially, and his blood relations don't matter to him anymore. And he even makes mention of the fact that there's rumors going around that it's not going to be Odin who succeeds Kozuki Sukiyaki, which is his father, as the shogun, but instead it will be Shimotsuki Yasui. So this Yasui guy, as a daimyo, he is very, very influential, and he was good enough to possibly be considered for the next shogun. And he gets hit by Yasui here, Odin. This is Yasui basically confirming his allegiance to Odin, saying, you're the only one who's going to lead and take charge of the Kozuki family in the future. And Lord Sukiyaki's kind of disowning of you is merely tough love. You should take that as a challenge. Odin says, forget about that, Yasu. I want to go out to sea. Why does this country forbid it? An isolationist country is far too cramped for me. Yasui once again punches him and says, only after you've become a competent samurai can you choose to be selfish. So this is kind of, we come back to that whole thing of Odin was kind of, he was cut from a different cloth to the rest of the samurai, to the rest of Wano. And yeah, it was definitely dope to see a young Odin. Yeah, but he was cut from a different cloth. He wanted to break free. He wanted to see outside of Wano. He didn't want to just be restricted within those borders. But that's all well and done. Well and said, well and done, well and, you know what I'm talking about. But anyway, we then see Yasui, who's now kind of on this crucifix in the middle of the flower capital, and he's basically just looking down at everyone who, essentially, a lot of these guys were his previous subjects. So we see people saying, Lord Yasui, I was born in Hakumai. Lord Yasui, I'm so glad that you survived. And we go to the flower capital, Rasetsu district, which is the prisoner showcase over here. And we're told that this man, Yasui, stole from the capital last night. Look at how far he has fallen from being the daimyo of Hakumai to, you know, this guy who's basically like a jester. He's a flatterer. He works in a Bisu town, and all that good stuff. We find out his name, Shimotsuki Yasui. Shimotsuki meaning something like, it's kind of the name for November in the lunar calendar, translated as month of frost, or frost moon, sorry. And that name actually bears a lot more importance. Go to see Zonin's, whether it's released today or tomorrow, go to Zonin's channel and look at his collaboration with myself and Kishin on this One Piece chapter, and go find out the greater meaning behind that name. You'll enjoy it. So we see Yasui, he's still smiling, and while they're talking about him, in the past, he committed the grave crime of opposing Shogun Orochi's army with his own army, and as such, he will be executed here in humiliation and buried as a sacrifice along with Komurasaki. We then get one of the Oniwabanshu saying that he admitted to being the witching hour boy who caused disturbances throughout the capital. And this is where Yasui begins his first of, oh, that was a lie. I figured that if I was going to die anyway, I would admit to it. That way I could draw everyone's attention. Now, whether or not he was a witching hour boy, I personally don't believe he was the witching hour boy, because the kind of silhouette we got of the witching hour boy, if we got a silhouette at all, had like longer hair. So I'm not sure if that was him. I really doubt it was him, to be honest. But it could have just as well been Yasui, considering he always had quite a lot of riches that he was handing out as well. So I'm not sure. I mean, like, I want the witching hour boy to be someone incredibly strong, someone who comes out and he's ready to kick ass. So it could be that he's the witching hour boy, because the whole point of what he's doing here is that he's covering up for the Kozuki clan. He's covering up for Momonosuke and all the rest of the Straw Hats and stuff like that, unintentionally, but intentionally for the Kozukis. And for him to take back the fact that he was the witching hour boy would then be kind of leaving the witching hour boy open to the kind of police force if he was a separate person, if you know what I mean. So the fact that he's saying that was a lie, it might mean that he was the witching hour boy. I just hope he's not, just because personally I think it would be better if he wasn't. So he apologizes to everyone for lying. This is being broadcast, by the way, all over Wano. And people are there like really disappointed in him, like, why did you commit theft and stuff like that, Lord Yasui, all that stuff. And then we see Drake saying that all the attention and commotion from Komurasaki's funeral has shifted focus to Yasui's execution. So I feel like this was part of the idea behind Orochi's kind of, we want to join these two events together, because he knew people would be very, very kind of weirded out by Komurasaki's death, and they'd probably rebel for a bit, you know, because they were all really into Komurasaki. And so he wanted to kind of publicly execute Yasui, but then he finds out who Yasui is, and he really realizes later on in the chapter that maybe he shouldn't have broadcast this guy's execution. So we find out the residents of Ibisu have invaded the flower capital, all that good shit. And they're Drake and kind of, what's his face? Hawkins, yeah. They realize that Yasui is a bit of a larger person in life, and his influence than they realize. So everyone from Abyss Town's running in, they're all laughing and stuff like that. We see Otoko and Zoro and stuff running from the Wintry Plains straight to Ibisu. Then we see Yasui he starts cussing down the Shogun. He's like, the Shogun's a fool. I know how your servants feel. I can see it in their eyes, how they're being oppressed by you and stuff like that. So then he says, he gives like a really, really grand speech. He says to everyone, take a look, feast your eyes on the magnificent flower capital. It's a grand sight to behold here in Wano. So the scenery here has been built from the ground up for generations by the hands of the Kozuki family and the citizens. It is our pride and joy. So kind of as part of this live reaction review hybrid thing, I'm really just going to pick up on parts of the chapter that I feel I need to address and then address them. So this part, it's very obvious what Yasui is doing. He's reminding the people about how Wano was built, or the prosperous Wano, the kind of golden generation of Wano. It was built by the hands of the Kozuki family. So you're getting all this information from the Orochi kind of dynasty as to how evil the Kozuki family were, what they did that put you in the situations you're in now, and we're here to fix up the situation. Just like how Doflamingo went into Dressrosa and blamed King Riku for all the murders and stuff like that. That's essentially what Orochi's done. So they're trying to play the blame game, saying that, the previous shogun was evil and all that stuff. But he's reminding the people, remember your roots, remember who made this place what it is today, remember your allegiances. So he's essentially causing he's reigniting the flames of rebellion within the people's hearts. Considering the last few chapters, we've seen the flame of rebellion die within everyone's hearts with this kind of open plan prison. So we see Orochi on his way to the execution grounds, and Yasui's there saying, are you listening, Orochi? The vast expanse of trees, bushes, rivers, and villages, you tainted it all with your boundless greed. So the tainted word here, I feel it's more than just you've come here and you've made everything bad because of who you are as a person. But I think he's also addressing the fact that, you've built all these factories and stuff like that build weaponry, that build devil fruits, which we'll get back to, which have actually contaminated the environment at large. So you're nothing more than a pest. Orochi's annoyed by this, and the people are trying to get Orochi, they're trying to get Yasumi to calm down, saying, dude, there's no going back. I'm like, he's being crucified. It's a public execution. It's not like he was going to find an easy way out. So you might as well speak your mind as you're dying, So another awesome thing that Yasumi does here is he addresses the picture of the two cranes and the snake and the moon. And this is where I said he really, really does a solid for the Kozuki family and for the Straw Hats and all their allies by taking the blame for that picture. He's like, that picture that's been circling around Wano, and everyone's been saying it's kind of a symbol of the rebellion for the Kozuki family and stuff like that. He says that it's been 20 years since the Kozuki family, since the Kozuki name died off. They no longer have any military power. So burdened with all their regrets and resentment, basically saying, with all the guilt that I felt of seeing my previous shogun and his family waste away, I created this and I have no military might behind me. I have no allies. There's nothing else. It was all a prank, bro. It's a prank. So even though the thing I like about this, and I feel it would have had more impact if Yasui had been introduced earlier, if we knew who Yasui was, if we had more of a story behind Yasui, and he wasn't just some guy that turned up in name a couple chapters ago, but it was last chapter, then I feel like this would have been a really, really, really solid One Piece moment. But I feel like Oda's kind of ruined this moment slightly by not having introduced Yasui earlier. Because if he had been introduced earlier, if we knew of this Yasui and then we saw Tonoyasu, we kind of were given the option to piece things together ourselves, that would have been fine. But we had Tonoyasu who we just didn't like. He's just a random waste man. And then now we find out it's some really important daimyo, and he makes this awesome speech and he takes the blame here. He completely, the awesome part about this, the awesome thing about this part is that he dishonors himself by saying it was all a prank. And you have to realize this is kind of very feudal Japanese. So it's a huge dishonor to say that he'd spread this lie throughout the whole of Wano, especially as a daimyo, as a respected man of Hakumai. And he then talks about how the shogun, Orochi had asked the 4 remaining daimyo to, will you bow before me or will you fight against me? And he just straight rinses Orochi here, saying You use cheap tricks to steal the title of shogun from Odin, even though you were greatly indebted to him. Hopefully that gets fleshed out later. Why the hell would anyone acknowledge you? So like I said, once again, he takes all of this dishonor of the prank, but what he does is he removes any and all suspicion from the symbol of the rebellion. So now people part of the rebellion can use that symbol and continue with their whole plan as if nothing had happened. They've been given a new, essentially they've been given a new lease on life in regards to the rebellion. We see Shutenmaru, we see Shutenmaru watching this on the big screen, and he's sweating. He knows exactly who Lord Yasui is, and he seems to be. I feel like this will be a turning point for him, because we see Inuarashi behind him, Shutenmaru, we see Kinemon behind him. They're all getting really emotional about Yasui, and but Yasui tells us, he gives us a bit of history about how the daimyo, the 4 remaining daimyo, including him in the past, took up swords. They took up, they brought their militaries, and they went to essentially take out Orochi, but their revenge was brought to a halt by the person known as Kaido, and then that basically brought Wano to its knees in the way it is today. So he then talks about how he couldn't bear the thought of living in kind of like hiding, so he devised a childish plan, which was that symbol of rebellion. So he asks the people to forgive him, and then he just continues kind of call Orochi a coward and stuff like that, talking about how he ordered the arrest of all these innocent people who had the mark of the crescent moon, which was simply a popular design from long ago. So he's basically saying it's kind of a fashion or some sort of fashionable design that just came back into existence. Kind of like a hipstery thing, like people knew that the moon was tattooed on people's ankles in the past, so they're just, oh, let's do that again. It's become kind of a fad. So that's what he labels everyone in this prison as. He's like, no, these guys are all following some sort of fashion or fad that's just come back to life. This moon on their ankles means nothing. And this is where we see a key part of the chapter, which is Orochi's men realize that we've done all this because Lord Orochi panicked because of this curse that he was placed under 20 years ago, because of this kind of prophecy, and we've essentially caught innocents and put them in prison. Orochi knows exactly what's going on, and he's there prepping his gun, getting ready to shoot Yasui, and we then see kind of Yasui just chilling. He knows Orochi's coming, and he's like, shall I tell you of the curse that binds your heart? He then says, upon the man whose mind is swollen shut, a lifetime of Odin to fill your guts. Now, you tell me what that means. I'm not going to go into that. But then we see kind of Yasui just monologuing in his head. He's talking about Kinemon along with the rest of the 9 Red Scabbards. He's like, I've cleared your plan of any suspicion. Your plan was set back, and now there's nothing for you to free anymore. It's crystal clear again. Start again, blank canvas. And for that, I mean, like this, like I said, this would have been so much more impactful if we actually knew who this Yasui guy was. But sorry, I'm just looking at some of the comments. Okay, yes, so it would have been so much more impactful if we knew who this Yasui guy was beforehand, but he has essentially given them a clean canvas to work with. He's given directions to the new meeting location. Now, I don't remember him actually giving directions to the new meeting location. You guys tell me. I assume it's just the same meeting location, but you see Kinemon getting really teary-eyed. You see some of the prisoners getting really teary-eyed because they're aware of what Yasui is doing. He's covering for them big time, and he's taking all of that kind of public hate and dishonor with him, even though there's not much more this guy could take, So he says it matters not how much the cowardly Orochi shouts and yells. His voice will no longer reach his soldiers. So he's changed the hearts and the mindsets of the soldiers of Orochi. These guys who were like loyal to Orochi and they were following his orders no matter what he said, have realized that, yo, shit, we've just rounded up like a whole bunch of these guys in Wano just because he's just this fearful, really anxious dude. The Shogun's cowardliness is truly becoming a pain, is what one of them says. So now they're going to try and Oda's just sliding in that kind of they won't rebel, but there's that element of maybe there'll be some that kind of a laxness, if that's even a word, in their kind of loyalty to Orochi. So we then see Otoko run up to the gates. We see Zoro looking at Yasu, and he's like, yo, Yasu's about to get KO'd. So as his kind of like last request, we see Yasui saying, "Cover the children's eyes. The last daimyo that served the Kozuki will now make his way to the other world. Let us all sing together," and stuff like that. So once again, another cool thing he does is he's like, cover the children's eyes. They don't need to see. They don't need to see me get basically wasted in public. But also, what I think what he's trying to do here is he's like, don't let them see the kind of, don't let them see this shameless man on his journey out, because he doesn't want to be remembered like that. Hopefully, what he wants to be remembered as by the next generation is after this whole arc and after everything, after we see possibly Orochi get defeated and Kaido get defeated, he wants the rebellion to tell their children of, there was this guy called Shimotsuki Yasui, and this is what he did, this is what he was, or who he was. So he doesn't want to be remembered for this frivolous flatterer from Ebisu Town getting executed. So we then see him getting wasted on this crucifix. He says, "Forgive me, Otoko, forgive your father for leaving you behind." He gets absolutely wasted. He falls down. He smashes on the ground. He's dead, like dead. And then you see the entirety, because the people from Ebisu Town had flooded this kind of this, not really arena, this plain, this kind of square essentially. Everyone from Ebisu Town just starts laughing. And we know that like they have this kind of weird, that they're always smiling, they're always laughing, no matter how painful the situation gets. And you see Zoro here, he's like, someone just died, he's bleeding out, his blood's literally gushing. Brook is like, the heck is going on? And he's shouting at Zoro, he's like, what the hell, why are you laughing? What's so funny about this? And Komurasaki's there crying and stuff like that. Otoko's crying but laughing at the same time. But this is where Komurasaki throws us in a bit. And once again, this is a part that we address in Zonin's kind of collaboration, is his group review, if you want to put it that way. So definitely go check that out, but I'll give you a small taste of what we discuss here. So she tells Zoro that the people of Ebisu Town, no matter how sad they are, and no matter how hard it is for them, they're unable to show their emotions, or such emotions, i.e. grief. They've been robbed of their ability to do anything but smile. All they can do is laugh. And it's all because of what Kaido and Orochi brought to this country, which is the fruit known as smile. One Piece is on break next week, damn it. But one thing I want to address here is the fruit known as smile. So Zonin, Kishin, and myself, we kind of agreed on the fact that it might have been these factories, the runoff which that it produces into the water from the production of these fruits, and then the water getting into the systems of these people from like Ebisu Town. This is what causes them to have that permanent smile. But I didn't really have any explanation as to why. So then we discussed how devil fruits are created from that gas, which is created by Caesar Clown, SAD, which is then shipped over to Dressrosa, where there's those factories, and then they utilize SAD, and then they process it into smile, which are the devil fruits, which are usually artificial zone fruits, but almost always 100% artificial zone fruits. So my theory here, and you'll hear Zonin's theory and all that as well, but my personal theory here is, and I did bring it up, is that SAD, the gas that they use to produce the smile fruits, is something. It's called SAD because it has the ability to extract and to take away everyone's negative emotions. So any sad emotions you have, it takes that away from you, and then it leaves you with only the positive emotions, and you can't possibly even show the negative emotions. So it's why it's called SAD, but then it leaves you with that kind of devilish smile, which is why the fruits would be known as smile. But thinking about it now, there is a big flaw in my kind of theory, which is that SAD would never really be present on Wano, because it's converted to smile in Dressrosa, right? So maybe there is a hole there, but I feel like that kind of, if that theory rung true, I wouldn't be surprised. But I feel like there is an element to the kind of SAD chemical which extracts negative emotions somehow, and maybe utilizes that in some way, shape, or form in the processing of the devil fruits. But yeah, so SAD takes negative emotions and leaves people with this stupid grin, and they are then unable to show their negative emotions. But that might just be complete bullshit, and it might just be the runoff from this chemical SAD that leaves people with this smile and unable to show their negative emotions. So that's pretty much all I've got to say today Um, yeah, I know. Like, so I got the MMA district, who is the Don Tom. So yeah, he agrees with the fact that it was painful to read, seeing that they couldn't cry without smiling, and it would have been more painful for me if Tonoyasu had some sort of or Shimotsuki Yasui had some sort of grounding or foundation before we we got him dying essentially on this grand stage, making that grand speech. It would have been better if we knew who the guy was, if we had more of a character connection or any sort of feeling or empathy towards this guy. But for me and for Zamin and a lot of people reading, it was just like, oh, like this guy's daimyo, that's cool and everything, but I don't really care too much about him, and he's just dying. So what do you want me to do about it? Anyway, let me know what you guys thought of this chapter. Let me know what you guys thought of this new format, which is kind of like a live review, something live reaction review. And I think if I decide to continue YouTubing, which I may do, stay tuned for that. I'll do it in this format because it's simple. It takes way less time, in total about half an hour as opposed to 1.5 ish. And I just prefer this way because it feels more conversational, and I don't have any notes written down. Very similar to the podcast, which I actually enjoy a lot more than like just regular reviews, if you feel me. So, like I said, let me know what you guys thought of this review, this reaction. Like, comment, subscribe, all of that good stuff. Let me know what you guys thought of the chapter, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys in a bit.